I've conducted dozens of mock interviews over the last few months with my students, and one thing that I've noticed that crops up over and over and over again is that people don't know how to answer effectively open-ended questions such as, "Tell me about yourself." In this podcast mini episode, I'm going to give you an effective structure so that you can answer this question effectively. And it's really important because most interviews start off with some type of variation of, "Hey, tell me about yourself." And that makes total sense because you're meeting someone for the first time, so it's just kind of an icebreaker question. Now, what I've seen with my students is they tend to ramble and just pack as much information in there as possible. And I think that this is the wrong approach for multiple reasons. Number one, your interview time is precious. So if you are including information that isn't super relevant or interesting to your interviewer, you're wasting that precious time real estate. Number two, sometimes my students will put their foot in their mouth and they'll say something that actively makes them look bad. It's almost like an unforced error. So they will overshare something that they feel bad or insecure about, and it kind of just sets some red flags or just makes things a lot more uncomfortable. So what I've been telling my students to do is to come up with a very succinct and cohesive narrative about where they've been in the past, where they are currently as a professional, and where they want to go within their career. So let me just show you this in action. So if I were asked a question, "Hey, John David, just tell me a little bit about yourself," I would answer it in 3 questions. One statement about my past, one about where I'm at now, and one about the future. So here it would go something like this. "Hello, my name is John David, and I have a background in analytics consulting and also teaching analytics at the college level. Right now, I'm working on a pipeline directly to the analytics industry. And where I want to go in the future is that I want to develop an analytics recruiting agency that helps place students in analytics roles." You'll notice that was 3 seconds or not 3 seconds, that was 3 sentences, probably roughly 30 to 45 seconds. What I've seen with a lot of my students is that they'll ramble on for 6, 7, maybe even 8 minutes. And if it's a 30-minute phone screening, that is a huge portion of the overall allotted time. Also, what I've done somewhat subversively is I've included a ton of emotional bids. And what you can think of an emotional bid is it's a conversational hook. So I included that I have experience consulting, teaching at the college level, an analytics pipeline, and also recruiting. So those are 4 conversational threads that the interviewer then can start to pull on to, unpack that statement, because that statement's super rich. But if they want more detail, they can ask. And instead of trying to mind read and anticipate what the interviewer wants to know more about, I just simply put out a high level overview of where I'm at. And it's a very cohesive narrative too. So this is where I've been. And also one thing about the past, if you haven't studied analytics, and even if you have studied analytics but have real world analytics experience, don't mention what you studied in college. Because unfortunately, and I've seen this across, we've probably done 120 interviews at this point, you're not getting a lot of valuable experience from higher education. Even if you're getting a master's degree and you're studying simulation data, that just pales in comparison to if you've actually worked with real data with a real company and driven a business objective forward. There's just a night and day difference. So I would caution you about mentioning your education unless it's super relevant and you don't have a ton of experience in this space. So I talked about my past, where I'm at right now, and then where I'm going in the future. And what you want to do is also kind of dial it into the company. So your past needs to relate to the role that you're applying for. And then also the future might be with that company, or it might include skills that you're going to develop in that role. And that kind of primes you up for promotion. So just to recap this very simple podcast mini episode, don't talk so much in the interview. because you are going to rob the interviewer of being able to guide the conversation and get all the information that they need during that conversation. So you want to create a cohesive professional narrative that succinctly ties together your past, present, and future. And hopefully this is going to, set you off on a much better footing throughout the rest of the conversation. So you'll set a much better tone for the rest of the conversation, and hopefully that will lower your nerves.